a brief lecture on the PPT slides I shared with you on learner variables. So you will learn what learner variable is, what learner variables involve. That means all the aspects of learner variables. There can be a number of aspects. We'll have a look at some of the variables briefly, but some of them in detail. For example, motivation, learning styles, and learning strategies. So, as language teachers, all the teachers need to understand his or her students. What are their needs? What are their motivation? What are their attitudes or personality? What are their learning styles and what strategies they use? Well, if we as teachers know the learners all these variables, there is a possibility that we can be mindful of these variables, and also for many of the variables we can make a change in them. For example, if we teach them how to use strategies while learning, they might learn better. Okay, so we need to know learner variables of the students. So learner variable can be defined in different way. Because as I told you, each learner is different. There are important individual differences exist in language learners, and these differences actually make differences in their score, in the performance, in the test they take. So linguists believe that individual differences on the factors of age, aptitude, socio-psychological factors, personality, cognition, for example, memory, are significant in the process of acquiring English as an ELT. I heard many of the students, a less successful learner maybe, he or she is saying that he or she doesn't have a good memory, that's why they cannot do better. They're saying that maybe those people have better memory, so they can remember better, for example, in terms of vocabulary, in terms of listening, so they do better. So all these are learner variables. So learner variables include, for example, intelligence, personality, aptitude, age, and then motivation, learning style, learning strategies. So among them, motivation, learning styles, and learning strategies will be talking a bit detail. But what is intelligence? You must have heard of IQ, right? Intelligence quotient. So it is the mental abilities measured by IQ test, that is the verbal or linguistic performance of the person, linguistic intelligence, how much he knows a language. And another one of the IQ test is mathematical or logical intelligence, how he's good at math or logical arguments. Now personality is a number of personal characteristics that affect learning. So a person can be introvert, a person can be extrovert, right? So you know it. And some people are more anxious, so they show anxiety, and it actually lessens the power, the potential of learning. And sometimes some people, maybe introvert people, or sometimes people with more anxiety has less self-esteem. They think that maybe I cannot do it, so they don't feel that potential in them. What is aptitude? It is the potential for achievement or performance. For example, in the beginning, if I give you a test to understand what is your potential to continue this module, Yes, in the beginning you had a test, that is the admission test. That's one type of aptitude test to see whether you can continue this MA in evening at Kumila University or not. Another one is age. Although you cannot change the age, right? It's fixed, but it has an impact on people's learning. We usually say that um, learners in their early age learn better and their memory is much more sharp in that age, maybe. So, according to researchers, there is a critical period hypothesis. That means there is a period in your lifetime that is the critical period. That means the peak hour of your life to learn a language. And this time is defined as from early childhood to adolescence. That means from childhood to your teenage age you can learn better. This is called critical period hypothesis by some researchers. Now we'll move to motivation, then learning styles, then learning strategies. So motivation, if you look at the slide on motivation, you can see that what is motivation? You know it, right? It is the urge to do something, to perform something successfully, to get something, to achieve a goal. So it is the desire, the drive to perform an action, make change within the self or the environment. So there is an urge to make change within ourselves or within the whole environment, in the society maybe. So, in language learning, researchers define motivation in the following way. You can say the definition by Gardner, 1985, and then the definition by Dorney, 2001. They are the researchers, the linguists. So, according to Gardner, motivation and attitude are the primary sources contributing to individual language learning. So, attitude, how we show our attitude to something, that is also a part of motivation. So, motivation is the primary source contributing to the individual language learning. So, it drives you to learn a language. So, if you are more motivated, you can learn better. And the phenomenon of motivation as consisting of four components, as advocated by Gardner, are a goal, an effort, a want, that means I want it, and the attitude. So there are four components of language learning. If you have this, you can learn better. Now, Dorney, motivation can be a matter explaining why people decide to do something, how long they are willing to sustain the activity, and how hard they are going to pursue it. That means, first of all, the learner needs to decide that he wants to learn this language, and he needs to decide how long he will continue. There should be mindset that I'm going to learn it within this time or maybe a longer period of time, and how hard they want to actually uh, try their best. So they need to fix within themselves to be motivated to learn the language. So, slide 6. This motivation can be of two types: intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation. So, intrinsic motivation is internal, inherent within the learner. So, it comes from inside the learner. Students who enjoy language learning and take pride in their progress will do better in the language learning course. That means if he feels that he really loves it, he wants to do it, he can do better. And there are pieces of research that show that there is a link, significant link, correlation between intrinsic motivation and language performance. That means more you feel the need to learn the language, you feel the motivation to learn the language, the more you will do better in the exam in your performance of the use of the language. And extrinsic motivation, the motivation that comes from outside, that is external, that can be by the teachers, by the parents. For example, if I motivate you, that is the external motivating factor. Okay, you will be motivated, but that comes from outside, external. Your parents can motivate you. Okay, go to the school, do better, then you can get a good job, right? So one example of extrinsic motivation can be ESL students, English as a second language learners, need to learn English in order to take a place at an American university, or an ESL or EFL learner learning English because he wants to get a good job. So it's not just feeling the love or passion towards the language, it is to get a good job. Maybe you actually don't love the language that much, but you feel that you want to learn it because you want to get a good job. That is extrinsic motivation, or we can say integrative motivation. So it's like intrinsic motivation can be intrinsic, the inherent one, internal one can be integrative motivation. Extrinsic motivation can be instrumental motivation. That means you will get a good job. So, and your teachers, your parents can motivate you. That is external. Slide number 7. We're now moving to learning styles. So, to learn a language or anything, the learners have different styles. So, there are four prominent learning styles. Okay, so what is style actually? Some people love to learn by listening to the person. Some people love to learn by reading the book. Some people love to learn by doing it, like experiment or field work through experience. So there are differences in learners in terms of their preference to the learning styles. So these styles are 4 types. So according to a researcher, these 4 types can be called VARK, VARK. This acronym stands for 4 things, 4 learning styles. V is for visual, A is for oral, R for read and write, and then K for kinesthetic. I'll define you the terms. So there can be visual learners who loves to learn by seeing it, watching it. There can be learners who loves to learn by listening and taking part in conversation. There are learners who love by reading the books and writing whatever he has learned. And then there are learners who believes in senses like by doing it. These people are called kinesthetic learners. They want to learn by doing it, by experimenting it from their experiences of life. So from slide number 8, you can see what is the definition of visual learner and oral or auditory learner. Oral means oral, auditory means hearing, listening. So visual learner is a learner is a visual learner if he or she prefers to learn by seeing or watching instead of words in reading or listening. This preference includes the depiction of information in maps, diagrams, charts, graphs, flowcharts, and all the symbolic arrows, circles, hierarchies, and other devices. So they want to see the picture actually. Now, oral or auditory learner. When a learner prefers to learn by listening and speaking, I told you, this perceptual mode describes a preference for information that is heard or spoken. So it can be like this type of students learn better from lectures, from group discussion, from radio, email, using mobile phones, speaking, web chat, and talking things through. So they want to learn by talking and listening. Now, slide number 9, learning styles: read and write, and kinesthetic. So, read and write is for information displayed or displayed as words. So, this type of learners love too much to read and then to write. So, reading and writing in all its forms, but especially manuals, reports, essays, assignments, books. Now, move to kinesthetic. This type of learner's preference is to the use of experience and practice. I mentioned already. The key is that people who prefer this mode are connected to reality. That means they often try to say something by connecting to the real world from their personal experience from past or other people's experiences, and by practice and simulation. That means somebody has done it, now I'm doing it by following him or her. So it's like simulation, and then practice by doing the thing, for example in the labs or in the fields. So it includes demonstration. They demonstrate the thing itself, they simulate the thing, they copy the thing and try to practice it and show the model. Then videos and movies of real things, maybe documentaries, as well as case studies. That means some research work that has been done in real world, case studies, practice and applications. So they are very much like practical. They believe in learning by doing it or by experiencing it, by learning from the real experiences of himself, herself, or from other people. However, in reality, do you think there are people they are only visual or only read and write or only kinesthetic? I don't believe so. In reality, all these modalities, all these four modalities can work together. Sometimes two together, sometimes three together, sometimes all four together, or four together. But maybe out of this, one person may like one of them much more than the others, but they actually mix all of them, right? So actually a learner can learn through the mixture of these four modalities, although there might be more preference for one of them. Now we're moving to language learning strategies. So, strategies means any technique, tactics, or processes that language learner use while learning the language. Sorry. So, language learning strategy is also called operation, routine process, procedure, technique, action, plan, or step by different researchers. So these language learning strategies, the techniques I'll say, are mostly defined by Oxford 1990 and O'Malley and Chamot 1990. There are two books. They have done extensive research on language learning strategies, and they have define language learning strategies and their classification, types of language learning strategies very well. So according to Oxford, language learning strategies are specific actions taken by the learners to make learning easier, faster, more enjoyable, more self-directed, more effective, and more transferable to new situations. That means when a learner takes any actions, any technique, okay, to make his or her learning better, or it's not a good idea to learn just randomly. Maybe if you get some words, you can put them in a diagram. Okay, these words in coronavirus. So we have learned a lot of new words: social distancing, lockdown, all these words, right? These are new. So if you're systematic, if you take some actions to learn something in a more easier and memorable way, that can be a technique for you, that can be a strategy for you. So there are lots of strategies. You need to know what are these strategies, which strategy can work better for me, for myself, so that you can make a better progress in your learning, especially in language learning. And as teachers, language teachers, we need to teach our students. We need to find the strategies students are using. Then we can give them more strategies that, okay, you might be benefited from these strategies, try them. And then we can show them how to use these strategies. So there can be teaching of strategies among the students to make learning more profitable, more better. So, according to O'Malley and Chamot, language learning strategies are specific thoughts or behaviors that individuals use to help them comprehend, to understand the text, then to learn the language, and then retain new information. Learn new information and put them in the memory. So, even if we say that memory is fixed for people, it is not, it might not be. We can train our brain to remember some things better and for a longer time. So that is your strategy, you will be doing it. So how you'll do it, you will do it. There are a number of strategies. If you look at them, selective listening, okay, that means you are listening selectively, not all the words but the keywords. Maybe you need to find the keywords and just try to remember those, otherwise you will forget all the words you are hearing and you cannot make sense of the text. So according to O'Malley and Chamot, strategies can be classified into four categories or four types. They are metacognitive strategies, cognitive strategies, and socio-affective strategies. So if we look at slide number 11, metacognitive strategies involve thinking about the learning process. That means, although you are learning, at the same time, you need to think how you are learning. Okay? Then you have to prepare yourself for the learning. For example, if you start listening to my lecture, before that, I have shared with you PPT slides on this lecture. So it is a good idea. It is a technique, a strategy that before coming to the class, you really read the PPT slides. Or even at least from the top lesson, learner variable. So if you trigger your brain, what is learner, what is variable, what can be in the lecture of the madam, so we can follow better maybe. So all these things are related to metacognitive strategies. That means you are thinking about your monitor, whether you are learning actually, whether you understand the thing, why you do not understand. Okay, so you are monitoring your listening, and then you are evaluating how much you have actually understood or learned from today's lecture. So these are called metacognitive strategies, that is related to thinking about the whole thing. Now come to cognitive strategies. This involve interacting with the material. That means the previous one was about thinking about the whole thing. You taking notes? Are you trying to infer something, guess something that you didn't understand from my lecture? Are you trying to summarize the whole thing I told about maybe